A well-known pharmacist is facing more than 100 charges for illegally dispensing narcotics. Our crews are digging into court documents. What we've found ahead.
Plus, new information on skeletal remains found in Bedford County, what the coroner now knows.
Plus, possible explosives found on the rooftops of Center County buildings, including the courthouse. What investigators know about the suspicious items so far.
6 News. Coverage you can count on. Starts with breaking news.
And a lot of breaking news to get to, beginning in Huntington County, where a 7-year-old boy is dead after being hit by a vehicle.
Police say the boy's body was found near his house at a bus stop. Police say it was a school bus driver who found him. It happened in Huntington County, but authorities say the child was a Tyrone area student.
Daniel Hamburg talked with one woman who says she's been fighting with the district for years over the bus schedule. Daniel, what else did she have to say?
Well, Tim, her first reaction was that this could have been prevented. Police say the boy was run over by a van on Huntington Furnace Road. Pennsylvania State Police say a bus driver from the Tyrone area school district found a 7-year-old boy just after 7 a.m. on Huntington Furnace Road. Police say the boy was run over, likely by a slow-moving van.
Out here, it's dark. Our kids should not be getting on the school bus when it's dark out, where in town, you know, it's more lit up.
Pamela Couch lives nearby, and she says she's put 2 kids through the school district and says this should have never happened. She wants the school district to pick up kids when it's light outside.
And we fought with them for years. They would be getting on the bus at 20 to 7 in the morning, and they would be on the bus for over an hour.
State Police Public Information Officer Trooper David McGarvey says they located a van and a driver in the area at the time. Right now, they're searching that van for evidence and doing forensic analysis. McGarvey says the driver didn't realize he ran the boy over, who was close to the road at the bottom of his driveway.
And that's where many bus stops are for many of the rural locations, not only in Huntington, but in just about every county in central Pennsylvania.
He calls this a tragic accident and hopes people take precautions when they're around bus stops.
It could be helpful for children to wear reflective clothing or have flashlights or have some way to let motorists know that they are near the roadway.
McGarvey says especially on rural roads when kids are getting on and off the bus, it's important to pay attention to where you're going.
Anytime you're around children, we hope that people will slow down and not be distracted and pay attention to what they're doing and just be extra cautious so we don't have anything like this ever happen again.
Now, state police are keeping the investigation open for the time being. If you have any information, if you were in the area this morning or know anything, you're asked to call state police at 814-627-3161. Live in Blair County, Daniel Hamburg, 6 News.
A major developing story right now. A Johnstown pharmacist has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Joseph Martella faces 108 criminal charges, accused of illegally dispensing narcotics that were prescribed by a former surgeon. Martella's pharmacy is a family-owned and operated business first established in 1964. According to its website, Martella's operates out of 5 locations spanning Cambria and Somerset counties, and is a longtime sponsor of community events, clubs, and organizations, including a team in the AAABA baseball tournament.
Our Rachel Pritchard has been looking into the 10-page indictment this afternoon. Rachel, what does it say Martella did?
Tim, the charges were filed on Tuesday, but the counts date all the way back to November of 2013. Martella is charged with unlawfully distributing narcotics as well as filling narcotics prescriptions for others to illegally distribute them. That someone else, authorities say, was a local physician who has already pleaded guilty to similar charges. Now, documents say Joseph Martella filled prescriptions that were prescribed by Dr. Peter James Ridella. They included oxycodone and acetaminophen, also known as Percocet, acetaminophen and hydrocodone, which is also known as Vicodin, as well as other Schedule II substances. Schedule II means a drug or a substance that has a high potential for abuse. According to documents, all of the controlled substances were given to a person known to the grand jury as JR outside of the usual course of professional practice and not for legitimate medical purposes. You may remember Ridella pleaded guilty back in June after being charged with illegally distributing pain medication and healthcare fraud. Investigators say he illegally prescribed oxycodone and Percocet while submitting fraudulent claims to Highmark, covering the cost of the illegal prescriptions. Rodella was scheduled to be sentenced yesterday on the 31st. He is facing up to 30 years in prison and over $1 million in fines. Rodella's attorney, Art McQuillan, told the Tribune Democrat back in June that he was writing the prescriptions for his son, who was suffering from an opioid addiction. Now, Martella has pleaded not guilty and has since been released on $10,000 unsecured bond. We will, of course, continue to follow this story as it develops. Until then, in Johnstown, Rachel Pritchard, 6 News.
A mystery in Bedford County got more unusual as the coroner said skeletal remains found last week are still unidentified.
The remains could have been there for a decade, and today only a few new clues have emerged. And Dylan Richards is following this story from Bedford. Dylan, what do investigators know right now?
Well, Jen, the only identifying information that they have about this is what a forensic anthropology team has been able to evaluate from looking at those human remains. Now, the team from Mercyhurst University says they believe the remains are from a 5'11" white man who was older than 50 when he died, and the remains could have been there for between 3 and 10 years. Bedford County Coroner Rusty Steyer says no identifying information was found with the remains, which he said is extremely unusual here in Bedford County. There are also no recent obvious missing persons cases from Bedford that would seem to fit this. On top of that, remains were found off of Route 30 on a treacherous part of a hill that actually made it difficult for investigators to even get there. Steyer said the remains had some damage from either rodents or porcupines, but they didn't find any trauma like bullet holes or anything obvious like that. And so they don't know how the person died, whether it was natural or suspicious or what. DNA from the remains will be analyzed at the Missing Persons Unit of the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification. They'll then be checked against a national missing persons database, which could take months or longer. Now, this announcement has ignited some suspicion that these could be the remains of former Center County District Attorney Ray Grykar, who you may remember mysteriously vanished in 2005 and then was later pronounced legally dead. That case, of course, separate from this, that case has puzzled investigators for years and ignited at least a half dozen conspiracy theories, probably more. I would caution you, though, I asked investigators about that case specifically because that is what people are talking about right now. They have no particular reason to believe these are Grykar's remains, but it's certainly been a topic of discussion. They are asking, though, anybody with information about this or anybody who knows anything about this to come forward and talk to state police. They say, if anybody knows of anyone who has been missing or has been killed who fits the general description of a 50-year-old white man about 5'11", to get in touch with state police. They have already heard from some people about this, but again, saying tonight, authorities saying that they have no idea who these remains could belong to. In Bedford, I'm Dylan Richards, 6 News.
Center County government offices, the courthouse and sheriff's office were both searched today after suspicious items were reportedly found on the rooftops of each building.
At this time, police are saying very little about their investigation. With the latest on the story, Gary Sinderson joins us live from Bellefonte. Gary?
Tim, bit of a segue here between our stories because longtime former Center County District Attorney Ray Grykar worked in this building right behind us. That would be the Center County Courthouse. About 200 yards up the hill here on East High Street is the former Center County Prison, now the Center County Sheriff's Office. This afternoon, both buildings, rooftop searches done on both after what was described as possibly suspicious packages, or a package or a container was found on one of the buildings. Police saying very little at this point about their investigation. This afternoon, police, along with county personnel and others, searching the rooftops of the Center County Courthouse and the Sheriff's Office. Searches apparently beginning when a leak was reported in the roof of the courthouse, water dripping into the 4th floor. That prompted a crew to go up on top of the roof, and they found the item, or whatever items were found there. We're told it's possibly containers with flammable liquid, and that sparked more extensive searches of both buildings. Here's what Center County Administrator Margaret Gray told us late this afternoon.
Earlier today, we were alerted of an incident involving one of our county buildings, and the police were alerted and are investigating at this point. As soon as we have some report from them, we'll be able to know more and to share. But right now, we do not have information.
The Bellefonte Police Department is heading up the investigation. Margaret Gray also telling us the county employees who work in both buildings here, the courthouse and sheriff's office, have nothing to fear. There was no damage to either building, but concerns were raised about a year ago. It was then when a county sheriff's van parked between the two buildings, the courthouse and the sheriff's office, suddenly went up in flames one night, was torched in a case that police later determined was arson. A suspect was never identified or arrested. We'll have more coming up at 6. Live from the Center County Courthouse in downtown Bellefonte, Gary Sanderson, 6 News.
Meantime, students and staff at Bellefonte schools say they felt tremors and heard loud noises throughout the day. No one was hurt. Classes weren't disrupted. According to the district's Facebook page late today, the United States Geological Survey says there was seismic activity in the area.
Meteorologist Tony Martin is standing by. Tony, you spoke with U.S. Geological Survey this afternoon about what could have happened. What did they have to say about it?
Well, Tim and Jen, they really don't know at this point because what happened was so weak, it barely measured on their instruments earlier this afternoon. In fact, right around lunchtime today is when the readings showed up, and really didn't amount to all that much. There's a couple of possibilities. One would be maybe a small earthquake. They're kind of leaning away from that, though, at this point. But again, nothing is specific, nothing for certain right now, but maybe thinking more along the lines of maybe some mining activity or possibly even an old mine collapse somewhere underneath ground across portions of Center County. So at this point, it's kind of a wait and see. They're going to see if there are any more seismic tremors that do show up on their gauges coming up here over the next 24 to 36 hours. But at this point, leaning either toward a very, very weak earthquake or maybe some mining, as far as maybe even current mining activity or an old mine possibly collapsing. Out there this afternoon, we are awaiting more rain. Big shock. Showers coming in from the west. These will cross the area later on this evening and into tonight. The brunt of this will miss us. We will pick up some. It's all with a cold front that will swing east across the area tonight and into tomorrow morning. We're going to start Friday around 60 degrees, so a very warm start for tomorrow morning. The problem is temperatures will go the opposite direction during the day. We actually fall pretty much all day long tomorrow. Cooler air is on the way behind that front. I'll let you know what that means for the weekend coming up a little later on. Tim?
Last night in Johnstown's West End has been identified. Cambria County Coroner Jeff Lee says 28-year-old Darice Coleman suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Lee said he was found lying face down on Beatrice Avenue near the Oakhurst Homes. The shooting comes just one day after a shooting that injured 2 people at the Oakhurst Homes. Police say it's not clear if these shootings are related.
Please, if you know something and you're not comfortable coming to us, please get word to us through a community leader so that we can end this trend of violence.
Both investigations are still ongoing. If you have information, call Johnstown Police at 814-533-2074.
Meantime, the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown is working with law enforcement, healthcare workers, elected officials, and the community to stop violence in Johnstown. UPJ received a $50,000 grant from the University of Pittsburgh to complete a cure violence assessment. It comes after the city and UPJ received a $150,000 grant to fund the program. Program leaders say Cure Violence is a public health approach to violence prevention. The idea is to stop the spread of violence and help people change their behavior.
People have been exposed to violence all their lives. That's all they know. So it may become natural for them to pick up a gun, where you or I, that would not necessarily be the case. So we've got to help them look at violence differently. We've got to help them look at other opportunities in terms of making money and surviving and providing for their family.
A workshop was held today at UPJ to get people inspired about the prospect of 0 deaths in Johnstown and to find out what Cure Violence is all about.
Coming up, the synagogue shooter was back in court for a second time today. Find out how he pleaded after the break.
And later, we take a look at a legal loophole that protects abusers in Pennsylvania.